Copywriting has been sold as a get rich quick scheme for like decades now. People think, oh, you can just roll over in bed and write some emails on your phone and then in comes the money. But there's nothing that's going to give you quick money because it doesn't really work like that, right? It's kind of a get rich slow, but a get rich slow is realistic. A get rich quick doesn't exist, and it's better than get rich never. When starting out, outreach is going to be the thing that separates the people who really want it and the people who are kind of just like, oh, I kind of want to do this copywriting thing and make a little bit of money. So you got to understand that you have to go at it with tenacity and just take massive action and really go for it. So that's the first thing, because I see a lot of people get either discouraged or they go at it like, oh, I'm going to send 100 outreaches a day. They do that for 3 days and then their brain turned to mush because they've been outreaching all day for 3 days straight, right? So basically come up with a consistent way to do it. So for example, when I was starting out, I did a whole bunch in one day and then stop. So what I recommend that people do is do 10, 20 a day, maybe even to start. Once you've done that for a couple of weeks, it's a habit. It's in your schedule. And then you can ramp it up to 30 or 40 or whatever, right? But a habit has to be implemented before it can be improved on. So it's really important just to show up every day and do it. That's the hardest thing.
I'm so excited to share this interview I did with Tyson, also known as Tyson 4D on YouTube. Thank you to whoever popped in my YouTube comments saying you need to collaborate with Tyson, because I was able to get him on the podcast and ask him about all of his cold outreach strategies. I think what me and Tyson have in common is that we were able to transition into copywriting based on our ability to get in with certain clients and make traction pretty quickly, despite not having that professional background or experience that writers sometimes think they need. So he shares his best tips with us, which I'm so happy about, because on this channel, I teach how to use LinkedIn, but he relies on methods like Instagram, and he definitely injects a lot of personality into his outreach, which I think are amazing tips to share with writers. I know you're going to get a lot out of this. So here we go. Enjoy. Tyson, introduce yourself and what types of copywriting you do, who you do it for, and how you got started.
Absolutely. So as far as what types of copywriting I do and who I do it for, so my offer now is based around people who do high ticket coaching or, build their own courses and get into high ticket coaching afterwards. So online creators basically. And my offer is mostly email marketing or funnel building. That's what I specialize in. And just starting out, it's kind of funny because, I started out as, a lot of people do. I tried a bunch of stuff. I tried affiliate marketing. I tried drop shipping. I tried pretty much everything. And none of it really went according to plan. But copywriting is something that I was able to stick to, and I actually did finally get some returns from. And the biggest thing is because I actually did stick with it for a long time, and I actually invested in myself and really became a student of the game. And that's kind of where I got my success from. And now I'm a professional copywriter. I have a few clients, and I also, teach my own copywriting stuff. I do some copywriting coaching and stuff as well.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you have a lot of beginners that are seeking out your content. And actually, I found you because someone had commented on my YouTube video saying you need to do a collab with Tyson. So I found you and reached out to you. But what would you say if you had to start it all from scratch? What would you say to those aspiring copywriters who really want to get started but don't know where to start?
Good question. I think about that sometimes. It's like, if I were to start all over again, what would it look like? But there's probably probably like 3 main things that I would do. And the first thing that I would do first and foremost would be stop searching for all the tactics, right? Because that's what I thought would really get the results, was oh, there's got to be a secret tactic out there. There's got to be a secret way to make money with this, a secret way to, write copy that people just immediately want to buy, or it's got to be a secret way where I can just get a bunch of clients. But in reality, I wasted a lot of time looking for that, right? Where it's now I give people a couple of basic outreach strategies, but it's people kind of always look for more. But I would say just pick a couple. If I were to start again, I would just pick 1 or 2 and then test them to see which one actually work. And then that's kind of leads me into the second thing that I would do is I would start testing. So when I started out, I kind of just tried a new strategy every day, which basically led to me making no progress because I don't know what I actually did was good or what if I did was bad. So what I would do if I were to go back is be really, really determined to track everything, right? Because I mean, like that's what businesses do. Businesses track their numbers and they track their KPIs, and that's how they figure out, what they're doing, if what they're doing is wrong or what they're doing is right, so they could do more of what's right and less of what's wrong, obviously. But yeah, that's the other thing that I would do is like run it like an actual business and not try to just get lucky and get a client or whatever. And the third thing that I would probably do is just really value experience a lot more than the money. So when I first started out, I was really worried about the money and getting money right away and quitting my job because it's like, I just wanted to just, obviously become full-time copywriter as soon as possible. But it would have been actually quicker for me if I would have just got on with a couple clients for, little to no money and then got the experience from that, which is valuable, and also got the testimonials and the proof of concept, which also would have been nice. So I knew if I would have done at least those three things, I would have definitely shaved at least a couple of months off of my progress.
Yeah, I think trying so many different strategies to find clients is where freelancers get so scattered and they don't understand why they're not getting results. And it's like,
Mm,
because you haven't put that concentrated effort into one avenue, because it
exactly.
does take time and it is a numbers game. And it's so funny you said that, because in my course, I get a lot of students asking like, well, what's your conversion rate with cold outreach? And I wish I had kept track of how many cold pitches I had sent before I got my first client so I could give that accurate conversion rate. First of all, it's going to be different for everyone, so it's not that big of a
Mm,
deal, but I genuinely just got on LinkedIn and started cold pitching every single day until I got my first client. And then it kind of
right.
snowballed. So I would say, like, pick a tactic, like you said, see if it works. And then if it's
Mhm.
not, you have to pivot, but don't try to do 100 dispersed strategies.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you get this question as well, but people often ask me like, you give out these strategies, but which one's the best? And it's like, well, I mean, I can't really answer that for you. Like they're all effective, but the best way to figure out what's the best is to test them all out and see. That's like the only way to really figure it out. So,
And it also depends on like your niche and who you want to write for and what your goal is. Because I always say avoid Fiverr, Upwork, and other freelance platforms because
mhm,
they do have the connotation of being low paying. However, there are plenty of people out there who do make good money on those platforms, on Upwork and Fiverr.
right.
But personally, for me, like, I had this very clear vision of like, if I could get 4 to 5 anchor clients that are paying me between $1,000 and $2,000 per month, then I'll make an income of this and I'll be able to live off of that. But I knew Fiverr and Upwork weren't going to get me to those small amount of high paying clients. For me, that strategy was LinkedIn. So for anyone who's
Mhm.
listening, I would encourage, just understand what your big picture goal is first and work backward, because then you can figure out which strategies of outreach are going to work for you. And I want to segue into outreach strategies, because what I loved about your YouTube channel was that you were coming out with tactics that I could tell I know are very effective because I have a sales background, but I just don't personally teach. So talk to me a bit about like Instagram strategies, and I want to hear about your Loom tactic.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, Instagram is something for me that is my preferred method, and I like Instagram a lot because the thing with email, like everybody was doing email when I first started, and people in the courses that I was in, they just teach email, cold email, cold email. So then I started doing some DMs, and the thing that I love about Instagram is that not only is it harder to ignore a DM than an email, because like emails is like you ignore tons of emails. You got a bunch of emails in your inbox that don't get read. But DMs is like people usually check them because usually that's where inbound leads come in. So, you get more replies. And not to mention, it's like as soon as you message somebody, they're going to look at your profile, right? So if you have the right stuff on your profile, it's now almost like they're checking out your website, but you don't even have to send it to them, right? So people always ask me, like, should I build a website? Should I build a website? Well, to me, it's like my Instagram is my website. It shows people what I do, my testimonials, my knowledge, and things like that. So, it's something that's really effective and been really effective for me. But as far as the actual outreach strategy goes, what I usually do is come up with a hook. So I have a couple of hooks that I usually go with. And then that's just to get them to reply, because that first reply is really important so that you can get from their request tab over into their primary tab. And now they get notifications when you message them. So once you're in there, basically what's worked for me the best is just sending them what I like to call a video intro DM, right? So here is literally where I just get on like a video and I say these exact words. I'm like, hey, my name is Tyson. I'm a copywriter. Basically what I do is I help, businesses close more leads. And, if you want to talk more about that, let's have a quick chat about it in the DMs, right? It's not even really that much of a crazy pitch. There's no crazy tactics, but it's just the fact that I'm getting on video and that I'm going above and beyond and showing my personality, showing my face. That's what really got me the most clients in the quickest amount of time. And as far as the Loom goes, the Loom is also very effective for similar reasons. So you can send Loom over email, or you could do it on Instagram as well. But the reason that Loom works so well is because you basically message them and you offer them like, hey, I had an idea, or hey, I have this thing that I've tried over here before, and I thought that it might even work in your business. Is it cool if I just send you a quick video just to run it by you? And then, that's pretty hard to say no to, because it's they're looking for ideas. So you send over the video, and in the video you can show basically your knowledge. You can tell them a little bit about your marketing knowledge just by showing them, going through their actual sales funnel or their page or whatever, or their emails, and telling them what you would change or what you've done in your experience or things like that. It also builds social proof. And again, just getting on video has a lot of power behind it, because a lot of people aren't doing it, right? So now, in being in the creator space, and I'm sure you get it all the time, people reach out to me almost on a daily basis on like being like, hey man, let's start a TikTok, or like I can cut up your videos into reels or edit some posts for you or whatever. But it's like, no, I've yet to see somebody come out with like a video of them getting on video and being like, hey, my name is this and that, and I've done this or whatever. So just doing that, I find, is like really effective and really ups the personalization of the message.
And I recommend that people do take advantage of that before it becomes like email, a strategy that, is really everyone's doing it. Because like you said, right now, at least, video is just kind of coming on the scene in terms of a sales tactic, and free tools like Loom allow you to record your screen and actually pull up somebody's sales funnel and walk them through and give this like consultation feel without the person having to get on a call with you just yet. I would say too, just disclaimer, when you do go through somebody's online presence and make recommendations, the big mistake that a lot of people do to me is they'll start criticizing my YouTube channel and like this, like you could do someone said to me, goes, you're doing this and like you could do it so much better. And I think English wasn't their first language, so I don't think they meant it to come across in that tone. But I'm like,
Right.
guys, like don't criticize and make someone feel bad about either spelling errors or video quality, because most likely they already know they want to improve in that way. So just
Hmm.
be a little more delicate,
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell my people the same thing, and I see it all the time as well. So I really agree with you. And one thing that somebody did to me was like, oh, hey man, your YouTube videos aren't getting many views because your thumbnails, this and that. And I'm like, oh, bro, you're just dissing my channel.
Yeah.
So like one thing that I tell people to do is use the compliment sandwich, right? So you go through it, you give them one compliment, say something that they did well, and then you say, oh, well, maybe this could be better because in the past I've tried it this way and it worked better for me. And then, but there is this one other thing that you did really well, right? So then that kind of like softens the blow of you kind of criticizing their page a little bit.
Yes, I literally just made a video talking about the compliment sandwich and how like I wish clients understood, because as writers, like sometimes, well, most of the time, it hurts to get feedback. Like it's just this thing. It's always gonna irk the writer a little bit, because I guess it's our work we're putting out there. And then clients come in sometimes with this like really savage feedback, and it's like, just be a little bit more sensitive and do the compliment sandwich. But not a lot of people know about it, so we have to
Yeah,
spread the word about the sandwich puns.
absolutely.
Tell me the biggest things you see that writers are doing wrong in their cold outreach. I feel like this could be a whole episode in and of itself. But what
Yeah.
are those fail moments that we can learn from and things we can avoid?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, when it comes to cold outreach, it's the hardest part about becoming a freelance copywriter, which is something that I never really took into account when I first started. And I feel like a lot of other people don't either, is that like, they think that the challenge is in writing the copy. But, writing a copy is kind of just like a learned skill. It's like you can look at videos, you can study it, practice it, learn it. But when it comes to outreach, there's a little bit less information on the subject, and it's something that's changing all the time. So you have to be in the modern day loop of it. And it's something that's a little bit harder to pin down. So when starting out, Outreach is going to be the thing that separates the people who really want it and the people who are kind of just like, oh, I kind of want to do this copywriting thing and make a little bit of money. So you got to understand that you have to go at it with tenacity and just take massive action and really go for it. So that's the first thing, because I see a lot of people get either discouraged or they go at it like, oh, I'm going to send 100 outreaches a day. They do that for 3 days and then their like brain turned to mush because they've been outreaching all day for 3 days straight. Right. So basically, come up with a consistent way to do it, a consistent number of times a day. So for example, when I was starting out, I did the whole, a whole bunch in one day and then stop. So what I recommend that people do is do, 10, 20 a day, maybe even to start. Once you've done that for a couple of weeks, it's a habit. It's in your schedule. And then you can ramp it up to 30 or 40 or whatever. Right. But a habit has to be implemented before it can be improved on. So it's really important just to show up every day and do it. That's the hardest thing, because a lot of people will burn themselves out that way, and then they won't see any progress and it'll be even worse. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And it's like, if you don't give up, the chances of you finding a client are like inevitable, even if it takes you a little bit longer than you expected. You just got to keep going, showing up every day. And then the next thing would probably be follow up. And the biggest thing is that people don't really like to do it, or it's like they kind of do it improperly. So as far as follow up, like, people come to me all the time and they're like, hey, I think I hit up everybody in my niche. And it's like, okay, well, maybe, but I know that you haven't been following up with them, because if there's more than a couple thousand people in your niche, then you should basically never run out of people, because once you run out of people, then you just cycle back and hit up the people that you already talked to or already messaged or whatever, right? So those are two things that I feel like people usually either don't implement or implement wrong that they could really improve on.
Following up, and I understand why it's such a sore point, because our natural inclination is, first of all, to feel hesitant to reach out to a stranger cold to begin with. So like cold outreach goes against a lot of our human instincts to begin with. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to DM someone, message someone that they don't know, because there's a good chance, or there's a slight chance that somebody's going to tell you to fuck off, right? So
yeah,
already
exactly.
we're going against the grain. And then to follow up is like, oh, now not only did you not answer me, but now I
Mm.
have to send you another message. And the natural thought process is like, listen, if they were interested, they would answer. So why would I follow up? And I
Right,
fall into
right.
that trap too. Like they see me, because a lot of times clients will answer me and then fall off the map. And I'm like, well, I'm here. You corresponded with me and now you're not answering. Am I really going to keep following up? So I teach a method of follow-up, which is like continue to provide value and don't just fall into the trap of saying, hey, just following up, just following up. Like that's the worst thing you can do. What are your recommendations about how to follow up in a non-annoying way?
Yeah. I mean, good point. You got it right there, because I mean, sometimes they will tell you to go shove it too, like, and they won't be nice about it. But that just comes with the game. And again, it's like that's the big determining factor: who really wants it and who's going to be successful and who's not. It's like, you're going to have those doors slammed in your face, but once it happens, you also realize that it's really not that bad. You'll feel bad about it for 5 minutes, but you'll move on, you'll keep going, and life goes on, and it'll kind of toughen you up, callous you. So it's kind of a good thing. But as far as following up, I mean, you also got that correct as well. You want to come at it from different angles each time as well. So, when people ask what's the best follow-up, that's another question that I get a lot. And there's no real answer. And it's because that some clients will respond better to, a humorous email. You send them something where it's a funny joke or something that's kind of playful, but others are just not really about that. They're all business and they just care about your offer. So some of them, you can just make them a good offer or whatever. There's different angles that you can go about it. So that's one of the reasons why I show different outreach strategies, because if one doesn't work, then you can always hit them up with a different one. And it's just like you said, like when a lot of people do follow up, they're like, hey, did you see my first message? Hey, did you see my first message? And that's a lot of the reason why they get the angry replies. So yeah, like you said, like incorporate value into every follow up you do. And it's pretty hard. Like near the end of when I was outreaching, since I don't really do it anymore, but I would get I would basically get a lot of really happy no's, basically, which is a really great thing and makes outreach a whole lot easier than when people are, telling you to go away. But like, nice no's, or a lot of people who are like, not right now. Those are two things that are like, I consider those wins, honestly. So yeah, I mean, that's basically the way to do it with follow up.
Yeah, I haven't gotten many nasty responses at all, but I think that's because I send highly personalized cold pitches.
Mm.
I mean, listen, I don't spend an hour on a cold pitch that wouldn't be scalable. But when somebody can see that you actually did take the time out to look at their online presence, it's really hard to fault someone, even if you have no interest whatsoever in what they're offering. People will just appreciate that you took the time out. So if you're getting nasty responses, I almost think that might be a red flag that you're irking people. But
Mm,
one thing though with follow-up, so in sales, they would obviously, I learned all my tactics from being a salesperson who was selling on behalf of other companies. And something they taught us to do was to always refer back to the last email when you're following up. So I did a
mm,
lot of cold emailing when I was in sales, and I would always keep it in the same thread. I would always say, regarding my last email. And more recently, I heard a podcast. This guy was saying, don't do that because it kind of puts the shame and blame on them for not getting back to you and almost could deter them from actually answering. Just
right.
act like it's the first time you're reaching out to them and switch up the message. And I was like, oh, I never thought of it like that. It's a pretty good idea, because you ever have those text messages you look at and you're like, damn, I haven't responded to this in a week. And now I don't want to respond because I feel awkward. So you don't respond again. It's almost
Yeah.
like, don't put people in that position of feeling guilty for not responding.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I actually do that honestly all the time. I'm kind of guilty for that. Just pretend like I never saw it. So then it's like, oh, my bad. But no, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And especially with the like, it's a sign that you're doing something wrong because, I didn't have a start in sales. I just did what the course or whatever told me. There was like 200,000 people in the course at the time. So I was doing what everybody else was doing. So they had like, I was like their 10th message of that day. So they weren't exactly nice to me, which is kind of what inspired me to try something new. Cause I was like, this can't be the way because it's not giving me any results here. So
And in the beginning of our conversation, you had mentioned not really going for like the get rich quick and trying to just find these shortcuts, because this really is the long game. I think copywriting especially is a lot about reputation. Are you familiar with Dan Locke, by the way?
I am actually, yeah.
So, like, he was one of my first introductions to the YouTube world of copywriting. And obviously, there's very mixed reviews on him. There's Hustlers University, Andrew Tate. Like, what do you think about these courses that I think what I've noticed with at least Dan Locke, it's like high income skill, high income skill. That's like his big thing.
Yeah.
Um, and as somebody who was in sales and now is in copywriting, the two high income skills, I think people need to be a little bit more realistic about like what that really means. So tell me what
Yeah.
you think about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, everybody joins Andrew Tate's course because they want a Bugatti and like 14 wives and all the money or whatever. They want to be rich like him. But like in the reality, it's like, when you're inside, he's teaching you about copywriting. And it's like, you're not going to make like 7, 8 figures from just writing some people's emails or something like that. But it's a great way to, supplement your income or replace your job and become an entrepreneur so that you can further develop your skills and get into lots of other things. There are lots of marketers and consultants and agencies that I know that started out as copywriters, and now they are making that 7 and 8 figures. But the thing is that copywriting was just their start. So, I mean, and yeah, a lot of people see it as a get rich quick scheme, and copywriting has been sold as a get rich quick scheme for like decades now. And because it's like, people think, oh, you can just roll over in bed and write some emails on your phone and then in comes the money. But yeah, it doesn't usually work like that. But the thing is that there are some people who will always just be chasing the shiny object. So sometimes when people come into my free Discord, for example, they'll be like, oh, yo, like how likely is it to become a copywriter in 3 months? Or how likely is it that I make like 5 grand in 6 months or something like that? And it's like, at that point, I kind of know, just because they're asking the wrong questions. It's like, no matter what they chose, you have to put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort, no matter if it's drop shipping or SMMA or whatever it is, right? So as far as, copywriting, whenever people ask me, should you get into it? It's like, it's definitely a good contender, and it's just as good as anything else, really. Because yeah, you can try drop. There's nothing that's going to give you quick money. It doesn't, because it doesn't really work like that, right? It's kind of a get rich slow, but a get rich slow is realistic. A get rich quick doesn't exist, and it's better than get rich never. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
I love that. Better than get rich never. I have to start using that. I get a lot of how long until I make 6 figures. That's the big thing that I get. It's like, dude, I don't know, because it's up to you. You have to become somebody who's worth earning 6 figures. And I think the craziest part is that it's not even about how good you are as a writer. It's
Mm,
genuinely about the cold outreach and how you market yourself and how you can sell yourself, not in a scammy, sleazy way, but can you convince somebody that you're going to add value to their business, and can you get them to trust you? So that whole idea of let me make blah, 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 doing copywriting, it's like you're already positioning yourself as kind of a sleazy person, and
mm.
this is such a reputation and trust game. So I guess it's about balancing those. I was surprised that Andrew Tate was offering copywriting of all things, because before I even knew about Hustlers University, obviously I just saw the clips, like all the reels and all the stuff. And then I learned about Hustlers University. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like crypto and drop shipping, these are these little sectors within YouTube where people try to learn these skills. But then copywriting, I was like, I kind of want to like go in, take the course and do like a review on it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about doing a little review as well, but I mean, personally, I found it wasn't really the right time because of what's going on with them. So I figured I'd kind of just leave it for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely see that. And a lot of the people who get in there, it's like, it attracts a lot of that type of person who are like, they want to get rich for free. They want to get rich as soon as possible with no actual effort or money put into it, right? But and like one of the biggest things that I learned, right, is since like I started with the $50 course, is that there was, like I said, there was over 200,000 people in there. So everything that I was doing there, I had no actual advantages, right? But the only advantages I actually got was when I started joining like high ticket programs and like really investing in myself. And then I started to learn stuff that other people didn't know. I started to get around other people who invested in themselves. So it really, that's the biggest thing that raised my income, was doing that and being like really realistic about it. Because like, if you're not willing to invest a couple $1,000s in yourself, then how is someone else going to invest that much money into you, is really how I started to see it.
Yeah, that's something that took me a while. When I first became self-employed, I couldn't believe that I was making money without a traditional 9 to 5 job. So I was very frugal. But then
Right.
you realize quickly that if you're not continually investing in your professional development and other people's programs and coaching and courses, you're really stringing together free information on YouTube and all that stuff is
Yeah.
only going to get you. So it's a waste of time at a certain point.
Absolutely. And like the thing is that like, I've spent some time around the 7 and 8 figure earners, and man, they invest in themselves heavy. One of my clients like told me that he even invested in himself by he invested in a guy basically for like 8 hours of his time for like $100,000, because they're not paying for the actual commodity. They're not paying for the time. They're paying for the result, right? So if they get that result, then they get the return on their investment. And that's how successful people think. And a lot of beginners really miss out on.
And that reminds me of not charging hourly. One of the things I always tell my writers in my program is don't bother charging hourly for your time. Like you have to either go with value-based pricing and or a flat fee and get on a retainer to really make good money. Because if you're charging hourly, this is my opinion. If you're
Mhm.
charging an hourly fee, you're going to get so good as a copywriter that something that once took you 3 hours is going to be condensed into an hour once you get faster and get better. So hourly pricing penalizes you for getting the work done faster, and no one wants to be in that position.
No, absolutely. And like the thing with hourly pricing as well is that you're turning yourself into a commodity. So there's always going to be somebody who can do it for a little bit cheaper than you. So it's kind of just like a price race to the bottom, and it only hurts you. So no, I definitely agree. I would say like charge per however much work you do, or charge per retainer, or anything but hourly, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to the Andrew Tate copywriting program, so he has other instructors that go in and teach each skill basically. Like it's not him, right?
Right, right. Yeah, no, he doesn't even touch the inside of the course. He's not even like, has nothing to do with it, basically.
What did you think about the skills? How do they, I'm just curious how they approach, I'm somebody who's never taken an actual copywriting course. And I want to get into this with you too about just getting in with your first client and getting the experience, because
Mhm.
that genuinely is how I learned. I didn't take any courses, nothing against courses. They 100% are great, but it's really hard to do copywriting unless you get the feedback from a client. Like whether you're doing it correctly or not is going to come from who you're doing the work for. So I want to talk about that, but what approach do they take with copywriting? How do they sell it and what are they teaching?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good point that you made, and that the experience that's on the job is really what matters. And I mean, one of the things about the course, which is it's kind of a good thing, but it's kind of not so good. And I hear a lot of people talk about it, but basically you get your copy reviewed by other people in the course. So it's like, you're all reviewing each other's copy, but at a certain point, you're getting your copy reviewed by some beginners, and sometimes they might say something and you kind of disagree with it, or you're like, what is this person talking about? So as far as how good you can get, I honestly, you can learn about it. You can learn how to break down some sales pages, learn how to, structure it, some of the basic stuff. But a lot of it, I mean, this is something that everybody says about anything, but I mean, you can learn it on YouTube, yes, but there is actual value in having a little bit of a community where you're doing stuff. And how they go about it is basically, I mean, yeah, it's basically all the basics. So like, I don't know if you know who Kyle Milligan is. You must.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course. So they teach like a lot of his stuff. So they're like, okay, well, this is NESB and this is DIC and PAS, and they basically show like a bunch of the beginner structures. And then he'll go through and do like a weekly review of like, he'll pick like 3 or 4 people out of the course and review some of their stuff. So basically everybody can agree it's a good spot to like get your knowledge up and like learn what copywriting is if you don't even know what it's about. But as far as like scaling and really honing in on your skills or learning anything else that has to do with copywriting. So for example, I teach a little bit of email marketing and sales funnels and some overall marketing stuff. They don't teach anything really about that. And they don't really teach much about outreach either. They have 2 or 3 email templates, but they give them to like 200,000 people. So at that point, it's like, it kind of defeats the purpose. That's my thoughts on it. And I felt like after 3 to 4 months, which is basically the average churn rate of the people that are in there, 3 to 4 months is like, that's what it's good for.
Interesting. It really depends on the type of client you want to go after too, because I think like with funnels and that type of copywriting, it is a little bit different than what I do for my clients, because I have my whole client base is B2B technology companies. So for me, the best place that I could go to learn those skills was going to be HubSpot, because they're producing B2B content for business owners and they're teaching marketing principles. But then like for funnels, there's the Russell Brunsons of the world who teach course creators and solopreneurs and online digital entrepreneurs how to market themselves. So it's kind of that blend between B2C and B2B.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like that's as far as like funnels go. So like, yeah, like you said, like there are also a lot of different skills based around what niche you're in. But basically, that's something that I always preach, is that learning how to put your copy to work, or the context of your copy, is really important as well. And another thing that I show people how to do is like email automations. So I actually go into the software and show them what it's like and how you can have it set up so that it's passive, right? Because a lot of the times people think that it's about broadcast emails, when really, in my experience at least, the most results come from automatic. People come in, they get the sequence after each day, and then it automatically sends them emails based on their actions. Right. So I show people how to get results doing that as well.
And on the topic of getting feedback on your writing, I feel like this is another misconception too, because copywriting is never just about whether or not the words are quote unquote good. It's very subjective, because one person can look at some copy and say, that sucks, like this doesn't sound right, but you have no idea how it's converting on the back end. And copy by its nature is very focused towards a target audience. It's meant to resonate with a certain person that thinks in a certain way and speaks in a certain way. So I think the whole concept of getting group feedback on your copy that's a misnomer. There's really no way. And people on LinkedIn, which can be an absolute cesspool of just corporate bragging and cringy ass stuff, people will like bring up these marketing campaigns and critique it and say, this is what I would do better. And it's like, but you don't know how it's converting on the back end.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And especially with the copy being subjective thing. I mean, you brought up Dan Locke earlier, which was funny. My mentor actually used to work for Dan Locke and write copy for him. And one of the things that he told me is like, one time I went to my mentor and I was like, yo, I sent my copy to such and such. And they said basically like, oh, like it could be better, or it could be improved, or like it's good for a beginner or something like that. Right. And my mentor was like, yeah, man, like that's something that business owners will just say, and it's their way of saying that it's good, but they can do better, because a lot of it is also ego. So sometimes I work with clients in like the business space, And I disagree with some of the things that their principles of copy, but at the end of the day, I make it like them. But I mean, yeah, it just goes to show. I mean, he worked for Dan Locke, and he told me sometimes what he would do is actually kind of like if he wanted to make a subject line a certain thing, he would pass it in, but like make it wrong the first time because he knew Dan would actually make him change it. So then like he'd make him change it, and he'd be like, okay, now I can actually write it what I want. And then Dan was like, okay, great. So I mean, absolutely, people will always put in their 2 cents, and it's a very subjective craft after a certain period. So whatever I tell people to do is, write it in your client's voice the best you can, even if you don't think that their voice is the best or whatever, because the name of the game is just doing what they want, especially until they trust you. So if you can show up and show that you can write copy in their voice how they like, then down the line, you could say, hey, I kind of want to try it this way or try it that way or whatever. And yeah, I mean, you're right. With the group reviewing stuff, the only thing it was really good for was if you have just like terrible flow or you're just like a complete beginner and there's some, huge mistakes in your writing, like they'd be able to help you there. But as soon as you get to that 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 skill level, then it's kind of like you're putting stuff in there and it's either not getting any reviews because, it's already up to standard, or it's like, you get reviews from beginners who kind of have their own misconceptions as well.
Yeah, I love what you said about doing what the client wants despite it not maybe being what you know is best, because that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. I get really excited about things. So when I learn something, I want to go tell the client and push it on the client. And I've had people react in a very not positive way of like, I think their demeanor was just like, shut the fuck up and do what I tell you to do. And I don't care about your ideas. And I think that's why channeling everything I learn into my own content is such a creative outlet for me, because you don't really get that positive reception from clients. Unfortunately, they do want it done their way. They don't care what you just learned on this incredible YouTube channel, and they don't care about the book you just read. And you have to kind of keep your ego in check. I wish I had the wisdom to keep my mouth shut at least until the rapport was built before I
Right.
came like crashing on the scene with my advice.
No, I definitely agree. And I felt the same way, especially now that I have clients and I have my own thing. It's like I know I do the client stuff at the beginning of the day, because I know like whenever I do my stuff, it's like I'm super excited to get into it, whatever. But I mean the clients have the good feedback sometimes, but it's never as exciting as working on your own stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. And especially for B2B, I think with your industry, maybe your clients, I'm assuming, are a little bit more transparent about results. But that's why for me, I want to really double down on email copywriting. But it's
mm,
really hard to build out a portfolio and show results because my clients are so secretive about any of the internal stuff because they're large companies. So they have a
mm.
lot of legal red tape and they don't want to share that information with a subcontractor. So for anyone who's listening who works for bigger clients with very built out marketing departments, sometimes the only way you will know if you're doing a good job is if they continue to give you work. And a lot of people online are like, well, does your copy get results? What are your conversion rates? Sometimes the client will never share that with you, depending on who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you can't even speak about who you're working with or what exactly you're doing, because it's just like, they have people and they have things that they have in place where they can't really just share a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Tell me about your program. I'm interested to know about your offer.
Absolutely. So as far as my program for copy coaching, right? A copy client accelerator. Yeah. In that program, I teach all the stuff that really helps me not only get my first couple of clients, but also help me scale and get clients repeatably. So it's something that, a lot of beginners struggle with and I struggle with as well, is like I was basically just trying to get lucky and get a client. My business was kind of just a lottery ticket instead of a business. So it was like, oh, if I get really lucky, I can get this client. But if it took me 1,000 outreaches to get my first client, and it takes me 1,000 outreaches to get a client, then it's like my business is, not that great. So I got to a point where, I could get a client like about every week or two if I wanted to, like a high paying client. And the only reason I was able to do that was through building my skills and basically building leverage, right? So there's 2 ways that you can get things out of life, and that's by using power or using leverage. So using power will be just like using your brute force, like hustling your face off until you get the result, which is like kind of how it is when you get your first client. But then using leverage is like, okay, now that I have testimonials, now that I have more knowledge, now that I have all these results, I can use them to actually get more clients. And, I show people like how to actually do everything that comes with that. So like build their Instagram, build their skills in copywriting, build their skills beyond copywriting. I show them different outreach strategies. I show them the best prospecting strategies that have worked for me and things of that nature. So that's what I show in Copy Client Accelerator. I have the on-demand course, and then also I have the private community where I'm in all the time as well.
Yeah, that's really key. And I think one of the most valuable things, it sounds like, in your program is building out that online presence because, like you said, I think the issue with email now is that it does have this impersonal nature. And just
Mhm.
like you, when I first learned about copywriting, freelancing, and pitching for business, everybody did talk about cold email. And what's interesting is I kind of just took everything they were talking about in regard to email and put that in a social media context. So I
Mhm.
would go on LinkedIn and send those LinkedIn messages. And what is really powerful about that is that it's not just a wall of text. It is your little photo popping up. And then with one click, they can navigate to your profile and learn everything they need to learn about you. So yeah, I think setting up, I'm assuming that's a module in your course, is like how to set up and optimize your social profiles.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think you also got it correct when you said that as well, because what a lot of people don't really realize is that when they start a business, even if it is a freelancing business, like you're starting a personal brand, right? So you're starting a whole like you should be sending a message with the things that you put out online. And if you're just a blank profile picture and there's nothing on your profile, then it's going to hurt you in the long run, right? So by optimizing it, that you're building your leverage and you're increasing the likelihood of your outreach, which is something that's really key. So I think that our strategies are actually pretty similar. You just kind of go the LinkedIn route, because I personally have never, I don't even know what LinkedIn is about. I just used Instagram because it was kind of like something that I knew. So
Yeah, I mean, either way with LinkedIn and Instagram, I think the important part is that they're not freelance focused bidding marketplaces. Like, have you ever used Upwork or Fiverr or any of those sites?
yeah, I mean, I tried a whole bunch of side hustle type of stuff, and my strategy was basically post and pray. So it was like, I'll just post up my stuff and then hope that somebody comes by, and then every couple of weeks somebody would be like, "Hey, can you edit this video for me for like $5?" So
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I first got into this game, somebody who I listened to on YouTube literally said, stay away from Fiverr and Upwork. And I didn't know exactly why, but I just took their advice. And it's just my experience that LinkedIn tends to have higher quality clients for my niche, my industry, for B2B anyway.
mhm.
I almost liken it to the Tinder's match vibe. When you go on Tinder, you're expecting like a certain type of casual relationship, and Match
Right.
has the reputation of people who want to settle down. And I do feel like Fiverr is like Tinder and LinkedIn is like Match.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like Fiverr is attractive to people, I find, because it's like they don't want to do, like you said, like the cold outreach is like uncomfortable, especially
Yeah.
when you're just starting out. They kind of just like, okay, well, here are my skills, so come pay me to do whatever. But it's like, especially if you're just starting out, like you're not really going to have much to say. Like there's no reason why someone would go to your ad on Fiverr when they could just go to some other dude who's like pro verified and has his picture up and is like, oh, I have 5 years experience or whatever. You know what I mean? So
That's the thing. It's very, very saturated. And, when you're on it, you nailed it, what you said in the beginning. People are on those platforms for their own gain, for their own like business opportunities, and your
mhm.
messages are going to get read. They have a way higher likelihood of getting read and opened and responded to on a platform like Instagram or LinkedIn versus a saturated bidding site where, like you said, the experienced people really rise to the top. Where is the best place people can find you?
Absolutely. So the best place that people can find me is probably my YouTube. My YouTube is Tyson 4D, and my Instagram is Tyson Scales. That's Tyson period Scales, Tyson Scales.
I got an ad from a second account of yours. I think people are making scam accounts of, do you only have one Instagram account?
Yeah, I do. There's a few of those going around.
All right, so let's put
Yeah.
that out there for
I
people.
will never I will never talk to you about your crypto portfolio, any Forex, anything like that. That's not me.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, I mean, every time I see someone who is like blowing up online and I follow them, I'll get like three scam accounts that instantly follow me. But I know it, but I'm wondering, do people actually fall for that? I guess they do.
I mean, some people have hit me up and they're like, hey, dude, like he talks just like you. And I guess they like literally go through my comments and see the types of words that I use and see my colloquialisms and they send it. And it's kind of sad. Like they were going hard on Christmas, messaging people, trying to get their money and stuff. And I was like, wow, like no morals.
That's so crazy. And that's so stressful for you because you're selling something and you don't want people to think like anything is happening that's shady. And that's just so frustrating.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. It is quite unfortunate. But yeah, if anybody comes across those, please do me a favor and report them. Much
Yes.
appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tyson. I look forward to collaborating with you and check out Tyson's program.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.